Microphone's on. Good evening. Welcome to the regular bi-monthly town board meeting of the Town Board of Tuxedo, June 12th, 2023. I'll call this meeting to order at 7:04 PM. As usual, would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Can you turn this on or no?
You can, sure. We have 5 agenda items. I'll read them. Resolution to enter into agreement with the Tuxedo Union Free School District regarding summer camp. Second is a resolution to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Tuxedo Park for use of the Weewa Beach area for the summer camp. A resolution scheduling a public hearing on proposed amendments to the 2022 special use permit for the Tuxedo Farms Planned Integrated Development. 4, the resolution to approve purchase of police vehicles. The outfitting will not happen this evening. And 5, a resolution to approve energy audit proposal from Daylight Savings Company. First, just ask for any public comment on agenda items, virtually or in person. As always, if there's a question during the introduction of the topic, we'll certainly do our best to take questions from the audience. And we expect to have a discussion on short-term rental regulations in the town of Tuxedo. So first, we'll start with agenda item number 1. This is the resolution to enter into an agreement with Tuxedo Union Free School District for summer camp. It's a pretty lengthy agreement. Basically, it outlines how children are registered in the camp. First of all, the services will be mostly using the Weewa Beach Lake in Tuxedo, Village of Tuxedo Park. There's Friday field trips, activities at the Tuxedo Union School facilities, morning activities followed by swimming activities in the afternoon. Maria May has been working hard with Kathleen Metcalf. Maria, is there anything you wanted to point out about this agreement?
Just, it was hard-fought agreement because transportation right now, as opposed to the way it used to be, is really, really expensive. So when Tuxedo Union Free School used to own their buses, the same services that we're getting, the same services that we were getting last year were $9,000. The same exact services for this year were almost $23,000. So, we had to, so one of the things that we did was we asked parents to drop the children off in the morning. We have an early morning program for them to, have somebody if they need to get the children there early. But it was the one way that we could make sure that the children were, having a camp and that the town and the parents wouldn't have to pay exorbitant amount of money. The town supports the camp quite a bit, but, it's only so much that, taxpayers should be asked to, donate or give to the camp. The other thing was that we decided to only have one bus. And so when the children are taken to Weewa, there'll be 2 trips. One group will go and have lunch at Weewa while the bus comes back and picks up a second group. So one group will have lunch in the high school and the other group will have lunch there. That saved in the amount of money that took to have 2 buses. So we really, had to work with the district and with Weewa and everybody just to get this agreement going. So I think Kathleen and everybody, Ken and everybody else and Carrie, everybody else that was involved in getting this done. Also Joanne from the school district, who was our liaison, so it's done.
Yes, I think the estimated overall cost would be somewhere over $15,000, but again, that's for the services both to and from the camp, 4 days a week for, I think, 21 days. And then the Friday trips, day trips to special locations. So I don't know if town board members got a chance to review this.
Do we have an estimate for the fuel cost? We're providing that.
We're providing the fuel.
Is there an estimate for that?
Carrie, do you have that by any chance? No, we don't have it right now, so.
They broke down mileage, the estimated mileage last year. Giving extensions on that.
I mean, that hasn't been any different from last year. I mean, all the years prior,
Yeah.
we have paid for the fuel, so.
So
And
what's
we
the
only have
total?
one bus.
What's the total?
Well, we're still working on it. I mean,
Oh,
we're
okay.
still registering kids, we're still hiring people, so.
Oh, I meant for the bus.
Oh,
It'll be just around $15,000.
Yeah.
Oh, so
It's-
it's less than last year.
yeah, it's almost $7,000
Last year
less
was
than last year.
23,000,
Yeah,
so
yeah, $8,000 less than last year.
that's good.
I have the amount, so I just have it in front of me.
I remember.
I mean, I have the amount for this time, but it was definitely just over
Well,
15,000.
one thing that's worth noting that with 2 hours' notice, if it's a rainy day, you don't have to use the buses or pay for them. So that's a big concession, because obviously you don't want, with a private bus company, you probably wouldn't get that same accommodation. So for any reason, the day can be canceled without charge to the town.
Plus, the Fridays are not included in the tuition, right? So.
Right, but the busing is included in the bus price,
Right.
so, yeah. So, and all of those trips are, you know,
So let me make a motion, and I'll ask for a second, so that the resolution to enter the bus agreement with Tuxedo Union Free School District for summer camp can be considered. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Maria. Okay, so formal discussion or questions can continue.
So this, just to summarize, I remember last year, one of the biggest issues was that prior to that, the school buses were owned by the school district.
Right.
So there was a significant cost savings in the school bus. And last year, it was taking everybody by surprise because we had to get an outside service. So,
Yeah, Matt is the company that
Yeah.
offers this
So-
service. And I have to say, we did our due diligence. We talked to Chestnut Ridge, we talked to Monroe.
Right.
Monroe they wouldn't even discuss it because they, still under COVID rules, they don't take busing, even if we're willing to pay, they wouldn't take busing for an outside district. And Chestnut Ridge, they're not, their insurance doesn't include Tuxedo, I guess, or something. That was an issue with insurance. So even though it's expensive, the best deal was going through Matt.
right. And it's the most expensive part of the budget for the school district, I mean, for the camp.
Yeah. And the biggest change from previously, I mean, some people are saying, oh, why is it so expensive? Why not pick up kids? If we were to pick up the 20 kids that needed to be picked up last year, it would have been $23,000 again.
It would have been
you know?
more, actually.
Yeah, more, yeah,
Yeah.
it would have been more, so.
Another item worth noticing is on page 6 of the contract, number 7. Insurance coverage by Matt Bus for the town will be that which is provided for the school district. School district will ask Matt Bus to add the town as an additional insured on its insurance coverage.
Right, and that's where Chestnut Ridge buses wouldn't do, you know, they wouldn't do that because they don't usually work with the district, so that was one reason why we couldn't use them. Not that they would be any more expensive than MAP, but
Any further discussion on this? No, so no further discussion. I'll ask for a vote to approve the contract to send over to the Tuxedo Union Free School District for its signature. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No, unanimous, Marissa? Okay. Agenda item number 2, intermunicipal agreement for use of the Weewa Beach area. I'll make a motion that the town board consider the approval of the intermunicipal agreement for the use of the Weewa Beach area. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Seconded by Michelle Lindsay. So similarly, this has been an ongoing negotiation, trying to arrange for the use of the Weewa Beach for the camp, for the dates of, let's see, July 5th through August 11th. Total sum is agreed to be $5,000.
So I want to say something that I really thank Michelle for helping us with this negotiation. I also thank the mayor of Tuxedo Park and the board for the WEWA because they decided not to raise the prices for us to use WEWA. They were $5,000 last year, it's $5,000 this year. So that
I thought
was.
it was higher.
It was,
last year.
well, it was higher, it was a mix-up, that the town paid $5,800, but we're getting the $800 back. The agreement last year was $5,000, and for some reason, there was a mix-up.
Okay.
And,
Yeah, I
but,
just
the
remember it was
five-
higher than
Yeah,
5,000,
5,000 last year, 5,000 this year, so.
Good.
So we thank them for allowing us to bring the kids there and also for keeping the same price, even though, inflation. So we thank them. And I thank Michelle because she was in the meetings with us as well, so thank you.
So quick question, can I ask? So on this, in terms of insurance, swimming and all that, that's covered under WEWA or is that covered under the school?
It's covered
board?
under us. It's covered under the town.
Okay,
Yeah,
so when they go up there, they're covered under the town.
yes. It's part of our permit. It's part of the permit that we have with,
WEWA?
with New York State.
Oh, okay.
As a camp,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Howard, do you have any additional information on that insurance question?
No, it's covered under the town's insurance policy. And pursuant to the agreement, we name the village as an additional insured to protect the village.
So the village has their own lifeguards that are there, although we have our own lifeguards that are there. So it's like double jeopardy, I guess. They, that's how, because they have to have insurance, they have to have their own lifeguards.
There's no shoe in.
Right, and so they have a lifeguard there, and we have our lifeguards that, are part of the camp, so, but yeah, so, yeah, they're a second insurer for us.
Any further comment, town board?
No?
Take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. So the camp's moving forward. Very good. I'm sure the parents and children will be very happy. Item number 3, a resolution scheduling a public hearing on proposed amendments to the 2022 special use permit for the Tuxedo Farms Planned Integrated Development. But before we get to that resolution, we have guests from Related and our attorney Howard Prater, who can give some background knowledge into this resolution that's being proposed so that the town board can follow up and consider this resolution. Howard, would you want to give the executive summary of what this motion is about, or Brad Schwartz, attorney with Related? I'll defer to both of you to give us a brief explanation. Howard, do you want to just take a stab
Okay.
out of it?
Yeah, I'll set it up for Brad.
Very good.
During the.
Right over the plate, Howard.
Okay. During the course of the project's review by the planning board, certain things have come up, generally small technical matters that need to be adjusted. The special permit locked in stone certain things, and the planning board really needs a little more flexibility in order to make their approval process more streamlined and effective. And there's also a concern about changing the list of roads in a certain way to allow for parking in an area that needs the extra parking. And so I'll let Brad go into the details on those issues.
Well, Howard, thank you for the opening. That was a great setup. And good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. I'm joined by Paul Milana and Patrick Dunleavy from Art Howerton. Greg is on, I see, as well as Dylan. I thought I saw both from Related. So good to be back before your board. As you all know, we've been processing the initial site plan and subdivision applications for the Commons before the Planning Board. I see Chairman Banyo on the screen tonight. Thank you for joining. And Howard's right. As we dug into the details before the Planning Board, it became apparent that some minor tweaks to the special permit and the design standards were needed to help implement and facilitate the project going forward. I'm going to touch on one issue, which is just changing the sequencing of ARB and Planning Board approval for site plans. Paul and Patrick will touch upon the parking issue that Howard referred to. Everything else is largely minor tweaks, housekeeping, editorial type stuff that we're not going to get into, but if you have questions, we're obviously happy to answer any questions. So with respect to the approval sequencing, the way that Article 8 of the special permit is currently constructed, we need to get ARB approval prior to site plan. And we're asking the town board to reverse that order. That would allow us to get site plan approval for the entire commons based on the building footprints for all the buildings and the horizontal site infrastructure work in advance of the ARB approval for the vertical buildings. And the reason is with the site plan, we can then get the horizontal infrastructure work going. That's all the cut and fill and get all the building pads ready for development. It's the grading, the utilities, the sewer and water lines, stormwater infrastructure. The site plan for the entire commons, again, will let us do all that infrastructure work in advance of ARB approval. What we would do is come in for ARB approval as the architecture for individual building sites are ready. So right now we're coming in for ARB approval for the first 4 buildings within the commons. So what we're asking the planning board to do is to grant site plan for the entire commons conditioned upon ARB approval. And as each individual building is ready with the architecture, we'll come to the ARB for that vertical construction. So it's again, it's a way to facilitate the infrastructure work in advance of having the architecture ready for all 20 buildings.
Yeah, and just so the record's clear, we no longer have a separate architectural review board. Those architectural review board functions are presently performed by the planning board. So it's not like it's a separate board that's going to get involved in any of this, in any of it.
As was pointed out, John Banyo, the chairman of the Planning Board Architectural Review Board, is here. John, I don't know if you have any questions you wanted to pose or comments about this process.
No, I think Howard and Brad summarized it very well. This will help facilitate the project going forward if these changes are implemented.
So I've attended all of your meetings regarding this issue, John, and I know that you took a vote I guess was just really to survey the board members as to supporting this recommendation to the town board, and my memory serves that the board unanimously supported this notion of the change of sequencing.
That's correct, Ken.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Supervisor, if you'd like, we could have Paul briefly walk through the changes in the road classifications that would facilitate the parking, some additional parking in the commons on the streets. And we could even show some of the preliminary architectural that we have on those first 4 buildings in the commons.
I welcome that. I'm sure the board members would like to see that as well.
Terrific.
Please go ahead, Paul. Looking forward to it.
Okay, thanks, everybody. A pleasure to be with you all tonight. I thought we would start high level and then get into the details because I think it helps set up the context for what we're asking for with regard to the road designations. My colleague Patrick has been kind enough to offer to drive the presentation. Okay, all right. So just to remind everybody, recent submission really was focused on the Commons and Quail Road from 17 to 17. We just keep clicking so we can do this quickly. This is an illustrative that we put together and showed the planning board last week, just to remind everyone of how we have always thought about the approach to the Commons from 17 and until some of the single-family residential neighborhoods are built. There's a story here which is about Quail Road, which comes in from 17 and begins to take on elevation. It starts to rise, as you all know. Those of you who've ever visited the site is really a series of step terraces, and the Commons is perched at this really at the first of the terraces of the site, and so. It's really a road through nature, and it's curvilinear. It's navigating topography. It's picking up grade. Its vistas are changing and unfolding, and our landscape team has really thought about how we enhance views as one is going up and down Quail Road through the forest. So it's really an adventure of moving through the forest and then having the Commons unveil itself, and you start to get cues as you approach where the cursor is right now, as you approach what will ultimately be the East Terrace neighborhood. The road section starts to become a little more controlled. We'll start to see some street trees that are at more of a regular planting cadence, whereas earlier it might be in clusters, allowing some gaps and views into the forest and into the wetlands. But now we're really beginning to announce town and the approach into town. And then as you begin to round that corner, you begin to see the buildings of the Commons, and they begin to address Quail Road. You start to see ground floors with stoops and stairs that get you up into the units. And then as you come around, now you're in that straight run of Quail Road, which is really what we would call Main Street of Tuxedo Farms. And that's an area where the buildings face into the street. We have some buildings on the southern end, south is to the left, north is to the right. At the southern end where we have ground floor commercial and active uses. And as we've talked about before, the intersection of Quail and Bridle Trail really is it's the main event of our town center, of our community center. It's the square. Around that we have a series of buildings with ground floor commercial space. Building 1 is envisioned to be fitness facility. 2 is an open air pavilion, which we think would be great for Saturday afternoon farmers markets, could be any number of events throughout the year. 3 is a building that we see as a market or a cafe, or maybe a combination of the two. 4, as we've talked about in the past, is this meeting hall / library, civic building. And then what Brad was talking about in terms of sequencing of approval, we really think the first 4 buildings of the Commons are buildings 5, 6, 14, and 15. 5 you see in the plan here, looks as if it's 2 buildings. It's on the ground floor, it has a passage. in the middle facing the square, which facilitates the movement between the south side facing the square and the parking court behind, which will become a major architectural feature in the building, and we'll show you in just a moment. And then the other buildings, as we've talked about before, are residential buildings, 7 through 12, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And the streets that we've looked at closely are Cortland and Lower Mountain Lake Road. We'll show you in a more detailed plan how we've evolved the plan from this illustrative. Next. And we showed you versions of these sections in the past. These are sections through the commons. The section on the top, number 1, is if you're cutting the commons really right down the middle, right down the center through building 5. Yeah, thanks, Patrick. And you're looking west. So you're seeing the ridges of the mountains that are to the west of the commons in the background. And what you're seeing is that the commons itself really has about a 20-foot grade change between Lower Mountain Lake Road and Bridle Trail Road. And that's being accommodated through the way the buildings approach Lower Mountain Lake Road. There's some tuck under parking, and then there's a 10-foot grade change and a slope. And by the time we get to Brayburn, which is really an internal drive, we're about midway in that 20-foot slope change. And then by the time we get to building 5, we cut the building through the passage, and you can see there's a series of steps that take you down to Bridle Trail and then across to the town square. And then the section on the lower part of the page, section 2, is through Quail Road. If you were to look at, essentially just to back up a little from that section above, you're now looking in the same direction west, but you're through Quail Road, and you can see buildings 12, 6, the end of building 5, Bridle Trail Road, and then you see the little market building and open air pavilion in the across the square. And as we've talked about, the architectural style of these buildings is really a contemporary Tudor vernacular style. And then these are sections. The top section is through Quail, looking just the opposite direction, looking east back toward Route 17. So again, now starting on the left at the high side, building 18, 17, 16, as we start to fall, you see the fall of Quail Road. And then buildings 15 and 14, you can see at 15 and 14, we have ground floor commercial and 3 floors of residential above. And then the fitness building, number 1 on the extreme right side. And then looking at the bottom section is through Bridle Trail Road, looking north. So that's as if you were standing in the square, looking back toward building 5. You see the massing of building 5 is sort of designed to look like 2 buildings that are connected by a bridge and an archway at the ground floor that takes you up and through to the parking court. And you see the fenestration, the storefront fenestration on the ground floor, which indicates the active use, commercial use. On the left side is the library meeting hall building, and then Quail Road, and then building 14 in the distance. And we're cutting through a little step terrace that gets us down to a parking lot, which would serve building 1. And we've blown these, a couple of these elevations up. These are the 4 buildings that we are looking at in terms of the first phase. These are portions of these buildings. So of course, this is the sort of eastern portion of building 5 before you get to the arch in the upper left-hand corner. And you see the ground floor retail, upper floor residential. And we really thought about the massing and how we articulate the materials of this building to bring them down to more of a human scale. So for example, the 4th floor in these buildings is sort of rendered as a dormer floor. While it's not a true dormer in the sense that, you've got attic space up there, we're treating the facade differently. We're sort of painting the siding there more in tone with the roof color, and the intersecting gables, which are sort of hallmark of the Tudor style. You see how that punctuates and goes up above the fourth floor treatment. And you see that we've done that differently in all the buildings. The idea here is that while the unit plans in the buildings here are somewhat of a kit of parts, the expression of these buildings is meant to be more feeling like as if each of them have been sort of designed independently by different hands, and more of the way a village would have developed over time. And we were looking at the different materials. There's stucco implied here. So the building 5 is shown as a stucco building, and then on the 4th floor is a vertical siding. Building 6 is shown with a stucco base with siding above. Building 14 and 15 also showed as stucco with siding on the 4th floor. So I think we're still finalizing material selections and color selections. These colors here are really meant for tone and value, contrast, not necessarily meant to be the exact color. But I think it begins to show you how we envision these buildings looking, how we envision articulating these buildings as is required by the design guidelines.
Paul, let's jump to the road classification changes.
Yeah, so, okay, now, so if you zoom into this, Patrick. So when we were studying the commons and thinking about parking and the idea that you're gonna have visitors here, you're looking for parking spaces going to the commercial, or you're gonna have people living here who expect to have a parking space available for them when they come home from work. And then there are times of the year events where you might have a little influx of people because you have an event here. So we were looking to see how we might increase the amount of parking. Best way to do that would be to add on-street parking. And we looked at Cortland and Lower Mountain Lake Road, where there seemed to be the ability to add on-street parking given the site dimensions that we had. And yet we did not have a section in the Smart Code Table 8, which is where all the sections live, which accommodated the parking on both sides. And on-street parking is something I really advocate for, because one, it's convenient, and if you offer it, it's used. 2, it does protect pedestrians. It gives them a sort of a fixed object between the pedestrian and a moving vehicle. So it actually does serve as a pedestrian enhancing device. It does slow down traffic. So if you're driving through a village and you've got parked vehicles on either side of you, you're paying attention, and you're probably driving a little bit slower than if you didn't have any potential obstacles. So there's a lot that on-street parking does. And we think that this will become convenient for people who are patronizing the businesses, and then the residential parking will be protected inside the courtyards and underneath the buildings. And then to accommodate these sections, we had to update our road hierarchy diagram. So, and this one's a little tough to see. I don't know if we have a zoom in. Yeah, there we go. So we had to develop these 2 sections. You see one in the orange and one in looks like a periwinkle color to me. And so these 2 sections are now included in Table 8. And as an example here, you have the local road 58-36 and 52-36, which accommodates the 2. We have a slightly tighter section on Cortland than we do on Lower Mountain Lake Road, because we're up against the wetland. But that's actually appropriate because we're up against a natural area. So it's not as if we're having to accommodate for the same things that we would be accommodating for if we had a building on the other side of Portland. So that's why you have 2 sections that are essentially achieving similar things, but we're being more economical in the section for Portland.
All right, thank you, Paul. So look, we wanted to walk you through some of these figures, as well as, again, describe the sequencing site plan A or B. everything else, all the other changes are shown in your packets. We're not asking for any approvals tonight. The request is if your board would schedule a public hearing for later this month.
He has questions about this.
Of course. Michelle has a question?
I was just, when Paul was talking, he was saying that the on-street parking was for visitors, not for people who live there. Is that correct? So there would be like a certain hour time limit, so there wouldn't be overnight parking? Is that correct?
I thought he said it was for the people living in town.
I don't think we've made decisions yet on any kind of restriction on the parking. I think that you might want to allow overnight parking just for flexibility, but we haven't gotten into that level of detail.
Well, one thing, these are town roads, correct?
Not the two that we're submitting for. The two we're submitting for are private roads.
If I remember correctly, at the planning board meeting, this is extra parking, but you don't necessarily need it for
Right.
all the residents, or did I mishear
That's-
that?
That we meet the parking requirements of the smart code without this. However, we believe that the place will function better with this added parking. There were questions about, what do you do on a snow day? And, I think the ability to have extra parking will give us the ability to be flexible when we need to be flexible. And I think that and if you go back to the technical plan, Patrick, really what we're talking about in terms of the special permit, because most of the extra parking that we're accommodating, we're doing so on the private parcel, but the part that we're talking about here in public realm, even though it's private street, really we're talking about those parking spaces right in there. So, they may be used by residents from time to time. I think residents will likely want to use the more protected parking behind the buildings. I think that's just human nature, and how you would enter the buildings conveniently from that side. But a visitor would more likely use the on-street space because they would perceive the other parking as not being for them. And I think that's a natural way that you can manage and control who parks where. I opt for flexibility because there may be a time when you need to use a space that, if it's restricted, you can't use it, then it's as if it doesn't exist. So, but we haven't gone through those details yet.
Ask you a question. Have you all met with the emergency services and with the highway department in terms of, if there were parking, if there was enough space for whatever, emergency services to enter or things like that, or not yet, or you have not to that
Yes.
point?
No,
No, we have.
We have, and we're continuing to do so during the site plan process.
Great, thank you. So,
Did I hear you say you were putting in a library? Mary McFarland.
It is.
Did I hear you say you're putting in a library? I heard you say.
The
Yeah,
building
it's a municipal space that the library will share for programming. We do have an agreement with the library covering that. It's also a space managed by the town. So it's a function space. So for example, I think the space is designed to hold 200 people in a meeting room, where obviously in a meeting room that we're in right now couldn't accommodate large groups. And so it's really a meeting space, a public meeting space that the library will have shared access to. And we've already negotiated that with the library, and they're very happy with that arrangement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a quick question. How many spaces are you adding by doing this modification?
Oh, wow.
Do they hear me?
you wanna say-
We heard you, but I don't know the number off the top of my head. I mean, I'd put it at around 40, but I mean, I don't know. Patrick, do you know by any chance? I'm counting as fast as I can.
I don't know off the top of my head. It's those
I'd
spaces that
say
I've highlighted though.
it's probably in the range of 30 spaces, 30. We've added additional parking, but it's not a special permit. We don't need to amend the special permit to achieve the other additional parking that we've added. But the parking in particular along Cortland, we think would be helpful for when there is an event at the Building 4 Civic Building. Because people obviously want to park as close to wherever it is that they're going. And so that would make it very convenient. And just to put everything again into perspective, from Lower Mountain Lake Road to Bridle Trail is about a 2-minute walk. It's really small. So we're not talking big distances here.
And you already had parking on Quail Road, correct? Was it just on one side?
That's correct. Railroad has parking on both sides.
Was both sides okay.
That is correct.
But that is not overnight, right? Because that's the town road that would need to be clear for winter snow plowing, correct?
17?
Well, Quail Road's a town road, so we can decide. where the
Oh,
parking
I
lots
see.
are.
That is
Yeah,
a
we
town
just
road.
have-
Quail Road is
That
town
I don't
road.
know if anybody's actually formalized those rules yet. I
Right.
don't know if it's in the permit.
What's it, town? It's a town.
Well, even town roads have overnight parking even in winter. It's just when there's a snow emergency declared, that's the only time that cars need to be moved off of
Right.
the road to accommodate plowing.
Right, so having extra parking is helpful because if we lose this on-street parking in times of snow, we have some additional parking elsewhere.
Well, the concept of the whole tuck under parking, as I've seen these plans evolve, certainly accommodates the residents' needs to not have to traipse through weather to carry babies and packages and get to their homes. They have reserved spaces for their units. And also visually hides parking where in previous iterations were out in the open. So I think you've accommodated a ratio of at least 1.5 parking spaces for each unit, something along that lines, Paul?
I think that's right. Patrick, are you?
That is correct. Yep,
Yeah,
that's
I
what's
think that's
required
right.
per the special
Yeah.
permit in the smart code, and we are
Yeah.
meeting that.
So you've been able to do that through new tuck under? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I mean, these are exactly the sorts of changes that we envisioned having to come to the town board to
Right.
look at, right? As this plan is evolving, and we're not really generating anything new here. We're allowing parking on both sides of 2 roads that only had parking on one side or no side before. These are,
And in terms of the approval of, of the whole site and then the ARB going building to building, that makes sense to me. Obviously, we want to get the infrastructure down.
Yeah, as the plan evolves and,
Yeah, things change.
Yep.
I mean, they're taking advantage of the topographical changes that was iterated earlier of a 20-foot grade change. For example, my home is considered a walkout. If you look at the front of my home, it looks like a 1-story house, but because of the slope of the land, similar in these instances with the tuck under parking, you're coming in through the back of the building and now you literally have a garage space, which would kind of be considered a basement. And so it's out of view from the front of the building. And of course, then accommodates residents parking in a covered environment. That would be more attractive to me if I lived there.
Yeah.
So are we ready to set up a hearing time?
I think we should set the public hearing. I think we should ask Bonnie to review this in case she has any comments on it. Howard should review it. I don't expect they're gonna find anything, but, you know, those guys from Related are sneaky, so.
And you would be able to do this presentation again at the public hearing? Because I don't think it was noticed that this presentation was happening tonight. So that they would be able, so that they're prepared to comment?
Absolutely.
Good point, absolutely.
Are we
All right, so,
Are we scheduling one?
I'll
Yeah.
make the motion to schedule a public hearing on the proposed amendments to the 2022 special use permit for the Tuxedo Farm Planned Integrated Development. Proposing that meeting be scheduled for Monday, June 26, 2023 at 7 PM. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second. Oh,
Seconded by Maria May. I think we've had our discussion. Did you want any further discussion on that? Just to set the public hearing? All in favor? Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you guys for your presentation and looking forward to moving this forward as soon as possible.
See you in a couple of
you.
weeks. Thank you for hearing us tonight.
Thank you,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Greg, anything before we start? All right, he signed off.
Okay, we have on the agenda a resolution to approve purchase of police vehicles. I was gonna scratch the outfitting of the package. I don't see we have a resolution in our packet, but, this is a resolution to approve the purchase of police vehicles. Are the, well, these are the two Tahoe vehicles that we have submitted by the chief and Lieutenant Norton. So Howard, Carrie and I contacted the vendor today, and he shared with us the Nassau BOCES contract that we are quote-unquote piggybacking off of. He confirmed that that's where the price was generated from. And I sent that to you today, Howard, for your consideration.
That's fine. We can piggyback on that.
The basic price of the vehicles was just a little north of $48,000. I could go get the actual invoice, and that's been circulated to town board members. Sorry, it's not in your packet, but been working on this up until 6 o'clock today. As far as the outfitting of the vehicles go, Howard, I'd recommend that we hold off on that to get further investigation about the quotes that were given. I'm not satisfied with what was submitted. The one quote we did get from the company that we will consider, I think we need more fleshing out of that. So,
Yeah, that's all, that's fine. That's fine. It's going to be a few weeks before the trucks are available and the cars rather, in any event, so.
that's correct. The vehicles were first ordered back in August of 2022, and due to supply chain challenges, let's say, Lieutenant Norton has been waiting further communication on the delivery of these vehicles, again, in communication with the dealer, Smithtown Chevrolet. Again, he informed us that the first vehicle should be ready within 2 weeks and the second in early August. So, you know, there's some urgency that we don't fall behind in acquiring these vehicles. Obviously, it took almost a year to get these vehicles built. Chief, could you just tell us a little bit about, you had written up some rationale. I'm sorry, I still don't have that in front of me right now, but you mentioned the value of these vehicles as both pursuit vehicles and also four-wheel drive, true four-wheel drive vehicles. Could you just talk to us a little bit about
Yeah,
why you think these vehicles are the vehicle of choice?
So Tuxedo is in a unique geographic location. We have highways and we also have the mountains.
Is this microphone on? Yes,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay.
So we have to be able to not only respond to things on the highway where conditions are usually generally nice, but also up in the mountainous, the neighborhoods, the mountains themselves, and also, if we have hunters or visitors, hikers that wander off the path, so to speak, we have to be capable of going into the woods and on those old logging trails and stuff like that. So that being said, the Tahoes have really become kind of the norm with the police fleets right now. Fords were having some issues, and just give me a second here. Ford actually discontinued their police line as of right now because they admitted that they were having issues. It was substandard for police use. So that doesn't mean that, they're not going to fix it in the future. But as of right now, we have two Tahoes, both of them 2012 Tahoes in our fleet. Both of them have well over 100,000 miles and they're still running strong. So, to have that dedicated four-wheel drive, is definitely preferable over the all-wheel drive, especially if we're dealing with a car accident on the mountain or something like that. Or again, having to go off the beaten path. As everybody knows, recent events, we had some woodland adventures, let's say, last week. So, and happy to say that, everything turned out right, but, being able to having that capability is definitely required.
Well, I did notice also on the mileage list that the Tahoe seem to be the vehicles that have stood up to the use. And also, with the need to be able to run vehicles when you're running a full A, B, and C line 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we need reliable vehicles. And it's clear that we need to be replacing at least 2 vehicles now. And I would say before the end of this year, knowing how long it takes to get vehicles, that we move forward as soon as possible with placing orders for further replacing vehicles. So these vehicles that were in the budget from last year.
Yeah.
So this is really fulfilling orders from last year.
I'll also say that it was our vehicle 968, which is a Chevy Tahoe that nabbed the bad guy last week. So
It's got a good track record.
yeah, it does.
So the paperwork on these has been circulated to the board, and again, if we were to move forward with this resolution this evening, although the prices, I can go get the invoice right now. So we can craft the resolution right now to do a not to exceed price of these vehicles were just under $49,000, a not to exceed price of $100,000 for these 2 vehicles. Does that sound like a prudent number to move forward with? Your microphone is muted, Howard.
I'll say it just went away.
I didn't go anywhere, sorry. Yeah, that number makes sense. I don't see any other costs.
So that was in last year's budget?
Yeah, that was my question. It was in the budget that we passed? I didn't remember that. Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
So this year's budget with the accessories or whatever it is you need to, what is it that's needed from what we're getting to when it's fully?
sirens,
Oh.
radios, all the
Brackets to hold the computer, guns,
Right.
gun rack,
Right.
That's on top of the
special
48.
lights outside the
That's
vehicle.
that's,
So that's the part that's not in the budget that we're voting on.
no, that was in the budget too. We
Oh.
budgeted for
Yeah, that's it.
equipped vehicles. We didn't actually buy them last year.
What was
It
the
didn't
budget?
pay for it.
I guess I'm confused, sorry. But if we pass, if it's in the budget and we all, I'm just asking process here, not
Yes.
anything else. So if it was in the budget and we all agreed to it and we passed it,
Mm-hmm.
then why are we voting on it again?
We,
I mean, shouldn't
we-
we just do it?
we have to vote to spend the money. We
I thought
authorize,
we did with the budget, no?
there's appropriations and then there's spending, right? So when we assigned the money, identified
Right.
the money as money that we're gonna use. We
Right.
haven't spent it yet. We have to vote to actually spend it.
Oh,
And you're approving a specific contract now.
okay.
You're,
What
you're,
are the
appro- you're approving a specific contract, purchase it, the vehicles rather
You didn't
from
see the estimates of
Chevrolet of
this?
Smithtown.
Okay. $48,000.
Oh, no, I mean for the package.
We're not approving that tonight.
But what?
But the number's
what's the
about-
Just
number?
under $20,000.
That's under $20,000.
Yes.
Yes.
And so that total cost, if it comes in at
70.
140,
About
It's like,
70,000.
yeah, about 70,
is,
140.
right, and that was in the budget from last year. That's, we
You
doing
signed
it,
off on it, so it's your responsibility to look at it also.
well, did we have the estimate for the additional package at that time?
Well, that was part of the problem while it wasn't fully, because there was the peripherals, from what I remember, wasn't ready. Carrie, did you have some conversation about that?
Well, going back to, I believe it was a meeting in August, the board was fully on board to purchase the vehicles at that time. We didn't have a firm estimate as far as what the build-out would actually cost. So the board put the actual resolution off until we had a better idea. So it was budgeted as one number for this year, but now the numbers are coming back different. I think that's why you're not approving the build-out tonight, just the vehicles.
Why can't we just do the whole thing? I mean,
'Cause-
why can't we just
because
say
we-
it's up to
Up to,
140?
and up to.
Yeah, up to.
Well, we could do
I
that.
mean, because just coming back and coming back, I mean, if we all agreed, I remember agreeing that we should get these two vehicles. If we know that it's going to be about 20 and it's about 50 and it's about 70,
Well,
Is it because
Right?
we don't have the actual documents?
Let Howard answer that, please.
I was gonna say, we don't know who we're buying the fit out from.
Oh, right.
So we don't have a contract for that to approve tonight.
Okay.
So if you were to authorize it tonight, we still have to come back to the board and say, okay, you've authorized the expenditure in X dollars. Now here's the vendor who's willing to sell it to us for that. You have to approve that transaction.
But I also think that we're all in agreement that we're not buying police cars and having the guys hang out the window and go woo, 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 right?
no, yeah, that's my point. Yeah, I mean, that's my point. It's like,
I think
why,
the point
it
is-
sounds like a lot of red tape to do the right thing.
That's what we do
all
here.
I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Like,
we
just
don't know.
get it done.
We don't know, yeah, we don't know.
We
who we're
have, but
buying
we have to
it
have a
from.
contract to approve, and there's some,
Yeah, I-
there
I-
are some,
yeah.
there are some procurement
used to that.
issues that we're working through with the,
Yeah,
with the
no.
fit out packages.
Red tape, okay. I get it. Or not. Thank you for explaining that.
So Howard, unfortunately, we don't have the resolution fully articulated here, but I'll take a stab at it. A resolution to approve the purchase of 2 police vehicles, Chevy Tahoe, under contract with Smithtown Chevrolet. That was built off the Nassau BOCES contract. We're piggybacking off of that, not to exceed $100,000. As per the paperwork that was submitted by Smithtown Chevrolet. The order number is on the invoice. I could go get it, or is that sufficient to move this resolution forward, Howard?
Yeah, that's sufficient. It's, the order number is BQTPJC.
Could you read the total quoted price, 48,000?
It's, well, there's two.
Could you
One,
give me the higher one, please?
48,994.
48,994 even.
Yeah, and the other is 47,994.
Yeah, I think that was a clerical mistake, so that's why I'd go with the 48,994. It's $1,000 less, well, isn't that great? I'll make a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Jay.
I would just offer the amendment that you're authorized to sign the contracts.
Did you pick that up, Howard? Authorized?
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Any further additions to that resolution? Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item number 5, a resolution to approve energy audit proposal from Daylight Savings Company. I'll make a motion, ask for a second, that the town board of the town of Tuxedo hereby accepts the proposal submitted by this Daylight Savings Company for an energy audit on Town Hall for the cost of $6,000 and hereby approves and authorizes the supervisor to sign the proposal in the form annexed.
You
This is,
need a second.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Michelle Lindsay. Open for town board discussion.
Well, I'll just introduce it that, we had reached out to 3 contractors, and we had a discussion with Ken and Bill Lemansky, who is on the Climate Smart Task Force, and he worked for NIPA. So turns out NIPA would have submitted a proposal for 3 buildings to include the police building, but the town board wanted to just stick with town hall at this time. So NIPA dropped their proposal, and so did the other company up in Albany. So Daylight Savings and Ocean is the one that we're considering. And in the contract, which you saw, and it's on page 14 of the packet, is the services that they provide, what they do. If you want, I can go through that. Basically, they will analyze the utility data, quantify base loads, variations, and anomalies. The site visit would evaluate the building energy systems that we currently have, identify energy and water saving measures that we could adopt, analyzing the building equipment and controls, operation characteristics, model the energy usage of the building and quantify efficiency measures. Final report will include the calculated energy savings, estimated implementation costs, and estimated cost savings. And then we would then get their energy audit report, which we would use when we put together a request for proposals for actual contractors that would install the systems, once we decide which type of system we want.
Yeah, that would be my biggest want, is the recommendation for the replacement of the building equipment so that, basically would have the details of specs so that we know what to bid out and not have to hire an engineer to do that.
I don't think they can do that. I think that's a
yeah.
conflict, to be honest. I think once they do it, they're contracted to do an audit, but a specification would be a conflict.
Oh, they don't
Why
tell
why
you
would that
what,
be a conflict?
No, they could specify that, they could say that you need,
You need X amount of stuff, and this is
Right.
what kind of things
Well,
you're
I'm not
thinking.
saying a brand, I'm not
Oh,
saying.
that's what I
no,
meant.
No.
Yeah.
no,
The specifications, like for a car, it's a 6-cylinder car, 4
Right.
wheels, et
Right,
cetera,
That's
et
part of their
cetera.
audit.
Yeah.
Well, that would
Well,
need to be clear.
Yeah, well, they do, they will, let's see, each recommended measure, because they're not gonna say you should do just this, they're gonna give you like options, like, heat pumps or staying with the natural gas we have, that type of thing, So there'll be different options and different specifications, what size system we need. Apparently, the one we have now is under capacity, so,
and air conditioning and things like that too,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
involved that?
yeah.
Air conditioning, insulation, window replacements.
Window replacement, new doors,
And, I mean,
insulation in your ceilings, things like that.
and I've had people ask, why are we spending $6,000 for this? Because we're all smart, we can look around and say, hey, those windows are, surplus from the arc. And the important thing we get is 2 things. First of all, we're all smart people. These are smart people and this is what they do. So they have much more experience and they have a much better knowledge of the current state of the art for replacements and things like that. And they will give us, there are perfectly good ideas we may have that aren't as smart as we think they are. Hopefully, they will steer us away from those, and we'll be able to bring in things that we wouldn't have even thought of.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
And we will get that third-party, you know, unbiased assessment of what things are gonna cost versus what they're gonna save, so that we can make informed decisions about where to spend the money.
Yeah,
Exactly.
well put.
Thank you.
Any further comments from board members? Any questions from our distinguished audience? That includes people out there in virtual world. If you have any questions about that, be happy to entertain them. Okay, no further comment. Prepared to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle, for organizing this. Okay. We have another resolution, memorializing resolution, opposition to New York State Bill A 02875, which is an act to amend the real property tax law in relation to telecommunications equipment owned by other than a telephone company. I'll just give a little background on this. We have our town attorney and his associate, Amy Levine, who have been looking into, Amy is specifically working on tax certiorari issues for the town. And I think that's how we became knowledgeable of this, right, Howard? That
Kara.
other towns had submitted objections to this law that's being proposed. The law basically excluding telecommunications facilities and equipment from property tax levies, which I think we've determined that in the town of Tuxedo would be at least $10,000 currently. And of course, as telecommunications and infrastructure continues to grow, losing out on that, thank you, Chief, losing out on that potential tax benefit. Is that kind of like the nutshell of this?
Yeah, except I think, first of all, it's Kara in my office.
Kara, I'm sorry.
She does the tax cert, but
Kara Cavallo, excuse me, right.
yeah, but I believe this came from our assessor.
Okay.
I think he's the one that brought this to our attention. He had a conversation with an assessor down in Rockland, and he's the one that sent this along. But Kara has reviewed it, and I've reviewed it, and it makes sense. We don't, frankly, we don't know if the legislation is going to go anywhere anyway, but it makes sense to go on record as being opposed to it, because it's another one of those steps that the state government can take that affects your budget and doesn't affect theirs. So you should always oppose whatever they're going to force you to give up money.
I think we asked, Mr. Davies, and he said about $10,000 is right now.
What, last year, yep.
Last year, what we got from telecommunications. So that's, that's something.
Yeah, I just point out that the proliferation of cell towers is only going to continue. And, to just look at what we're currently potentially losing, certainly wouldn't represent future revenues and impacts. So again, this is really just a resolution imploring Governor Kathy Hochul, Assemblyman Carl Brabenek of the District 98, which represents us, and State Senator James Skoufis, 42nd Senate District, we're just basically imploring him to not let this tax revenue be taken away. So I could read the whole thing, but I think you guys had an opportunity to do that, and it was reviewed by our attorney, so I'll just make a motion to authorize me to sign this and send it to these representatives. Do I have a second?
A second.
Seconded by Maria. Any further discussion or question on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Correct the monthly reports. Let's knock this out. This should go quick. The discussion was, that'll be a big one. Let's knock this business out.
You do the short-term rental one?
Sorry?
This?
No, that will be a rather lengthy discussion, I think, so.
So then you're on reports.
Yeah, I'm in receipt of reports from the building department, different types of actions and inspections that were taken. Page 18 of your packet. Page 19, the Justice Court submissions of revenue. And the town clerk. Did you want to say anything about your report? Marissa?
Sure. What would you like me to say?
Well, I see the revenues that were collected.
Yes, we've been busy, definitely. The marriage licenses are becoming more frequent now. It's that time of year, everyone's planning for summer and fall weddings, so we have quite a few of those. Parking permits for the train station and commuter lot has also been steady. Selling some fishing and hunting licenses, and dogs as usual. A lot
So
of
is the parking
genealogy.
from Park Mobile? Is that-
No, so this revenue is only from the commuter parking lot, so the train station, which is
permits?
resident only, and then the commuter lot over off of East Village Road, that's for non-residents, but they can get monthly tags instead of paying the daily rate.
And in the total local remitted, does any of that money have to be passed on to the state?
So in the local shares, that is turned over to the town, so that is the town's monies. And then those three lines, the New York State Agriculture and Markets, that's for dog licensing. The DEC, we keep pennies on the permits that are issued, they take a chunk of it. And then the marriage license, they get about 55% of the cost goes to the state, and we get to keep the rest.
So the environmental conservation, fishing license, hunting licenses,
Yes, yes.
got mine through you, thank you very much.
Yes, you
Very
did.
convenient.
So I have a question, now that you've brought
Please,
something
go
up. So the monies that we get for permits, for parking permits,
Yes.
is that, so we collect that monies, is it then designated to something specific, such as like, the train station maintenance or parking lot maintenance or?
That would be a good Carrie question.
Yeah, that's
So when I turn it over to the town, I'm not sure what fund it goes into.
Right. Yeah, it goes into the general fund, but I'm not aware of any designation specifically for.
The monies collected for daily parking are supposed to be used for upkeep of the lot.
So
There
the
are a number
daily
of
rate
issues
and
with the
Park
current
Mobile.
parking like regulations.
Yes.
That's just like a third tier of importance kind of thing to look into.
I have my to-do list, yes.
Yeah.
Signage definitely needs to be updated.
Yeah, so that would be a fund that you would be able to
Yes,
tap
they-
into. That's all I'm asking.
In the daily, the lot, they call it the lot. The signage, so we pay Park Mobile is the company that the commuters, if they pay a daily rate, so they go through an app. They
Right.
pay it, then they pay at the end of the month, those monies, a check comes to the town. They do provide the signage for us, so that we do not have to pay for. So I have those made, they just need to be put up. The old ones need to be taken down. I think there's something that directs people to a kiosk, which
Doesn't
is
exist.
maybe, I don't know if the kiosk is still there, but if it is, it's not in
No,
working
it's
order,
not.
so,
They're-
yeah. So
yeah.
little things like
It's an
that,
app
but
only at this point.
yes, yeah.
That's not unusual anymore, though, to be honest.
No, that seems
No,
to be
it's
standard.
right. It's,
Yeah.
The
that
buses,
whole section of the code, like a number of our code sections,
Yeah, I
needs to
know.
be brought kicking
I
and
know.
screaming into the 21st century.
Yeah.
What's a kind of usual amount we get at the end of the month?
I would say,
Park Mobile?
Yeah.
It runs between $790 to about $1,100, depending
Yeah.
on what, if they take their fees, they take the processing fee, and then they take obviously their
Oh,
administration
About
fee.
$8,000 a year.
and on their website, it does share reports, months that are, it'll break down how many cars per day, month, graphs, if anyone's
How many
interested.
we missed.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Right now, it's driven by license plate. So if you go on the app, you have to put in your license plate. It's not designated by space number.
Okay.
That $3 for a 24-hour period. So it ends at midnight and then.
Thank
So
you.
that's a
You
good
were
amount.
answering questions that you were not.
Yeah, thankfully I know these, so.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Do you have anything else you want to?
I do have a couple of things. So although there is a primary election in June, on June 27th, we do not have one in Tuxedo because there's no state, federal, or local positions for a Tuxedo to weigh in on. So their next election is just the general election on Tuesday, November 7th. I have a lot of important deadlines for that general election on our website. And the County Board of Elections now has a nice website that you can go on, look up your own voter registration information. But on that site, the state has one as well, tell you the same information, but this includes a sample ballot if there is one. And not that we need directions, most people know in Tuxedo where the polling places are, but I know through COVID, there was a lot of changes. Town Hall was one, and now they're back to having all three. So sometimes there's confusion on who goes where, but that's a good place to look. And easy to find, I'll have that link on our website. What else? There's a bill that Senator Skoufis has sponsored. It's going before the Senate. They haven't voted on it quite yet, but it's proposing to change the term limits to even years. And there's a lot of confusion, so will you have to end your term early to fall into an even year? But there's a lot of details that need to be ironed out. And
Yeah, I think they decided they're going to phase it. It's going to phase.
it's going to phase.
If it passes.
Right, if
Yeah.
it passes. So we'll get hopefully more information on that. Town Hall will be closed in observance of Juneteenth on June 19th, which is a Monday. And IW service will not be affected for town residents. It'll run as normal Monday and Thursday. And that's it.
thank you.
Robert Dolbaum, Highway Superintendent.
I have a few things. Something two things of a discussion. Kicking Field, the well, it appears that the pump we haven't used it in 4 years or so. It hasn't been on. We tried to get it up and going today. I believe we have a pump issue that we are going to replace tomorrow. Just a heads up, that's.
What does the pump provide water for? Irrigation,
No,
bathrooms?
no, bathrooms and the concession stand. But it all goes through the concession stand. There's plenty of water in the well. The power is okay. The pump is not pumping, so we will get to the bottom of that tomorrow because there's a
Block party?
block party this weekend at, we will know by the end of tomorrow afternoon if it's going to be a porta potty block party or it's going to be a bathroom is there. block
Luxury
party.
trailers are available, so.
So we will know that tomorrow. We should take care of that. Second thing is I have a proposal from Young's Paving for $3,260 to seal and put new lines on the basketball court in the mini park in Eagle Valley. It was paved about 10 years ago, and it's time to seal it and re,
The one on Eagle Valley Road?
the one on Eagle Valley
Yeah,
Road.
it needs
yes,
it.
Before we have to repave it.
Yeah.
So I'm suggesting we move ahead with this proposal.
Can I ask a question about that? Because I was there the other day and it looked like the equipment is kind of, for the kids, it's a little bit outdated. It's
What's
the
that?
little park that has like the,
Yeah, it's
Are
the
you
one that's on
talking-
the
Yeah,
corner there.
yeah.
Yes.
I wish, those are good, right? Those are up to date and, nobody's gonna get hurt in there or,
No,
you don't really know.
we actually just fixed a swing there. Yeah, we periodically go through the parks,
Okay.
check the equipment, check the, yeah.
Before you move off on the Young's paving, Howard, does that need a resolution at that $3,260 level?
Yeah, I would. Do we have a proposal from them?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Yes, I do.
okay. Then, yeah, then I
Yeah,
would,
it's under $5,000, right?
yeah, you only need one, so that's fine.
But can we just phrase that before we move off it, just so we get that on the books, that we pass the resolution for that?
Yeah, does Rob have it with him?
Yeah, he has it in his hand.
My hand.
All right,
I could read it,
I can't see it.
obviously. I could read the bulk of it and try to form a resolution. with
All right,
you.
it's really just authorize, it's authorize the expenditure.
So I'll make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with J. Young Enterprises, 22 Foley Road, estimate number 2921 dated June 1st for $3,260 for the Eagle Valley Playground, basketball court ceiling, as Rob said, power clean and sweep all areas, strip all the vegetation, furnish and apply multiple applications as needed, asphalt base coating, and furnish and supply pavement markings. Priced as per prevailing wage, $3,260. I'll make a motion. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Seconded by Deirdre Murphy. That's sufficient, Howard?
Yes,
We'll scan and send you this. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Rob, I'll give this back to you, but
Keep it.
thank you, sir. I'll give it to Marissa for the record. So if you want to continue with your report, I think you want to report a little bit about your paving job that,
Yeah, yes, that's the next thing on my list. Paving, we've completed the majority of paving in the Laurel Ridge section. We still have gutters and,
great job too.
thank you, gutters and pull-off areas and things like that that need to be completed, but for the most part, that's been done for this year.
Will there be a yellow line on Sylvan Way?
On Sylvan Way, yes, yes. We did the stop bars.
I did see that.
And the slow signs in the road. And we don't do the yellow line, so I have to coordinate that with the company that does Bremertown, Benjamin Meadow, and Southgate, Eagle Valley. I'll coordinate with that company.
And I saw your team mark the fire hydrants also today.
All the fire hydrants are marked. We did that all over the town, the entire town. Stop bars, railroad crossings, slow one-ways that we paint on the road. And all the fire hydrants in town are marked. And that's not for just to see a yellow thing on the road. That's more for a winter thing. If you plow and you have to get fire hydrants buried and you don't know, but you see it in the road, the firemen know where to dig. That's more for what that's for, yeah.
And all the residents who live near that fire hydrant know where to dig?
Know where to dig, right, exactly. Or the town highwaymen go by and they know where to dig, yeah. Okay, tomorrow we are starting back on the dirt pile. The last piece of equipment, well, not the last piece, but the excavator's in tomorrow. The end dump for moving the dirt and the dozer was delivered today. Tomorrow the excavator's here. And we will start on the dirt pile. The screener will come in about 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Because it's gonna take us a couple weeks to get ready for screening, so. And that's, that takes care of that. Along with that is the other stuff we talked about, the buildings coming down and that type of thing, cleaning up the site, and that's all included in that. And last but not least, I'm just gonna go, we got plenty of mulch up at Quarry Field. Everybody knows where it is. If you don't,
They don't by now.
Right.
should tell the Woodlands landscapers to go get it there.
if you don't, well, they're commercial, they can't do that.
Oh, they can't.
Yeah, it's for homeowners, it's
Oh.
not for,
Well, we're all homeowners there.
yeah, well, you gotta take your car
I
out
know,
there in a
that's
little
my
bucket
problem.
and. Yeah, if you want. But, and that's basically what I have going.
Okay, moving down the agenda to Town Board of Supervisors update. I'll start with my update. I'm happy to say that the chief interviews for full-time police officers have commenced. 4 qualified candidates were interviewed on Tuesday, June the 6th. Chief Trezino and I reviewed the civil service list and met with the 4 top candidates. Follow-up communication with the candidates continues. Offers are expected to be made soon. Tuxedo LD, well, before I move off of that, we have in the budget, first of all, a new police officer position for 2023. Part of this interview process is Stefan Christian has submitted his resignation effective July. I'm not exactly sure, but it's sometime early July. So those are 2 positions. As these interviews continue, I'd like the town board to consider, after careful budget analysis, which we actually, Karen and I were looking at today, considering hiring a 3rd police officer to finally get us up to speed where we could, too bad the chief left, but to get to a level where we can actually start to do a complete A line. We are doing an A line, which is the 11 to 7 shift, 11 at night to 7 in the morning. But to have a full, complete A line, we do need to add an additional police officer. I'm not talking about that tonight, but I wanted to lay that out, that you'll get backup information from me during the next week. But the 2, one to replace Stefan Christian and one that's already on the books, we'll be making those offers as soon as possible. Tuxedo LDC. The related companies delivered payment on the funds needed to support the first 3 grants issued by the Tuxedo LDC. Drum roll, please. This will allow the board to now consider additional applications. A deposit of $372,122.65 was received today that fully covers the grants made to Augusta Properties, Carlin Realty, and the Tuxedo Historical Society. Ren Fair 2023. I've been working with Chief Trezino and Miss Buffy Marie Favada, General Manager of the Ren Fair here in Tuxedo, to establish a security contract to improve traffic and security for the 2023 fair. Proposed improvements include the addition of 6 traffic agents who would work under the supervision and direction of Tuxedo Police. The goal would be to improve through traffic flow on Route 17A, to work to reduce traffic bottlenecks near Long Meadow Road, to ensure Bramertown Road is not used for fair access, and to have these traffic agents respond as needed to traffic problems at the discretion of Tuxedo PD. All costs for this security will be paid for by the Ren Fair. All charges for police services were fully paid in 2022 by Ren Fair Productions. Additionally, Ren Fair is also contracting with Orange County Sheriff's Office and New York State Troopers for additional police details, similar to what was provided in previous years. I'll just piggyback on the Tuxedo Highway Department site. Cleanup of the construction debris will continue, as Rob said, tomorrow, right, Rob, you said? Yeah. Started? After consultation May 8th with the DEC site monitor Wesley Salas, town engineer Sean Hoffman, Bill Canavan, environmental consultant, and Deputy Supervisor Jay Reichcott, we discussed next steps in the removal of the debris materials that we have been processing for the last 2 or more years. It was decided that materials processed in 2022 will be moved to a holding area in the rear of the site so that screening and sorting can continue. Remediation of Tuxedo Hamlet sewer treatment collection system is continuing. Working with Rob Dolbaum, Jay Reichcott, and Sean Hoffman, we're trying to finalize an agreement to begin relining the deteriorating sewer lines. Flow meters are being used to accurately measure the amount of water entering the system at 2 specific spots. Tuxedo train station renovation. Specifications for repairs are available for interested contractors through the town clerk's office. Bids are scheduled to be opened on June 16th at 10 a.m. And last, Altais franchise renewal negotiations. I've been working with town attorney Howard Trotter and his colleague Amy Levine to update the agreement. One result of these meetings has been the installation of a high-speed connection to businesses on Contractors Road that had been on hold for more than 10 years. I received thanks from several business owners who now have access to this vital service. Now, circulate through the town board for their reports. I'll start with Michelle Lindsay.
Thank you. We talked a while ago about investing town funds and if we wanted to consider going with NY Class, which is it's sort of like a mutual fund that a lot of municipalities use. The state comptroller does limit what the fund can invest in for New York school districts, municipalities, colleges. So I've been looking at that. I've been talking to Andrew Arias about it. And Carrie has provided me with some cash flow so we can use our income calculator that they provide to see how much money we would actually be able to bring in on an annual basis. We would need to make adjustments to our investment policy in order to invest in this fund. So I also will be looking at a ladder of certificates of deposits by various banks and as an option to the NY Class. So if you would like to put it on the agenda next time, I will report. Let me know.
So you'll circulate to the board more information about New York Class and what goes on with that?
Yeah, but when would you like it to be discussed? So I have an idea for schedule.
I'll work with you on that, more than likely the next town board meeting.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think as soon as
Sooner.
practical.
Yes,
Uh,
soon as possible.
Howard has a comment.
Yes.
Michelle, do you have available at this time the changes that would have to be made to the investment policy?
What I have is Marissa found our investment policy, and I don't think we'd have to do too much change. It's just we'd have to, maybe you and I can look at it.
Okay, sure.
The additional things that they invest in that are not specifically in our investment policy.
Okay, sure, great.
It's probably only a couple of items.
Okay.
So that's that. Our Climate Smart Task Force met today, and the village is ahead of us, so we have to catch up. They are getting more points. And Jim Hayes is just a force to be reckoned with. That man is just barreling ahead, garnering all the points. And we need to get 120 points in order to get certified. So we're getting there on the town
Where are we?
side.
What's our number?
Well, with community choice aggregation, that's a big one. So I think we'll be close to around 80 by the end of this year. So then we just have to go get another 40 next year so we could be certified.
When will we get certified?
Well, hopefully next year.
No, I'm sorry, I was unclear. What is being certified? Besides having a certificate to put on the wall, what is being certified? Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought I presented that. It makes you eligible for these pools of funds. I think I sent a,
Yeah, it's just been a while since we talked about it.
yeah, I
Just
know,
looking for a
yeah,
refresh.
right. I'll send it, I'll dig it up and send it around again so you can see the types of grants and the amounts of money
Okay,
that would make us, that we would be eligible for.
excellent.
And then, when we were, just meeting with Senator Skoufis, he, we were looking for, hopefully some SAM grant monies for our energy updates, but he, said he likes pocket parks. So we would like to have a discussion on that, hopefully at the next meeting. Does that sound like we could do that, so we could
Would
prepare
he,
for that?
would he spend the money on like park, like the regular park that needs like
No,
or a
he's-
house park or?
No,
Park-
no,
pocket
it would
park.
be more, just like a little seating area. I mean, to me, just my personal opinion, the area where we celebrate, the holidays in December, that park, because the MTA has a plan to put a sidewalk in there, and you could just kind of add some landscaping and some benches and a focal point of some sort.
He's very strategic on what he
Yeah,
wants to work on.
that's kind of what pocket park means.
Is it to create new,
Yes.
create new parks? New
Yeah.
parks?
Well, yeah, I mean, it seems to me the most reasonable spot is that area north of the train station, because the town owns it, and it would be easy to implement. I know we've talked with the post office about the area south of the post office. That's, that would be another pocket park kind of option with parking, but that would not be easy to implement because we'd have to lease it from the post office.
So you asked, would that be on the agenda for
Yeah.
next time?
Yeah, I'll
My
prepare a
response
report.
would be a more general brainstorming from the town board as to what kind of projects might be eligible for a SAM grant. I'm not sure how the list was developed to make suggestions for Senator Skoufis. And certainly parks can be part of that, but I think there needs to be a general discussion of what we're seeking. What are the goals of the town that might be eligible for something like a SAM grant? So again, not to say that a discussion of parks and
Well, we were requesting, we were requesting money to help us with the energy upgrades, because we thought, that seemed like it was our most immediate
all I'm saying is that,
HVAC system.
for anybody to liaison with an elected official, I just think it would be more productive if it was full cooperation with the town board as to what our asks are, what are our hopes before we even go out for that money. But that's just, I'm not trying to open up a new discussion on that.
Yeah, but
This is your report, so I'll
Yeah.
let you speak.
No, I mean, we were basing that on discussions we've had at the board level, that we would like to see if we can get funding for the HVAC system. We've had that discussion before, so that was our ask.
Okay, I don't want
He
to turn
came back
these
with that.
reports
Okay.
into too much back and forth, because
Okay.
we're waiting to do our scheduled discussion on, so please, go ahead.
That was the last piece for me.
Thank you.
So mine is really quick. So Marissa, I'm gonna have this discussion with you. I was at the meeting with the senior committee on Saturday. And one of the things that we went through was the website. And right now, all the senior information is like all over the place. So we thought maybe, especially when I'll be out of school for, in a week and a half, so to just meet with you and maybe, I think somebody else in the committee, was it you, Mary? No. Well, we just, like, a couple of us will meet with you and see if we could, right now, the information is like all over the place. Some of it got changed over, so it was really old, like 2021. So like coming up with a process for keeping it up to date and also keeping it visible. so people can go find information. When you type in senior, some of the things that comes out are like old things that I'm sure that they just were put, or, so that's,
On the website, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
on the website. So, and, like, they have a calendar, it's their own calendar, but we don't really put anything in the calendar. I think it's fine to put it in the regular calendar when they have meetings, but maybe add details, if we can, if they share with you, so they know more than just a meeting, so, things like that. So, we're not ready to talk with you, you're the expert, so we just want to make it so that it's more user-friendly for seniors to use.
Yes, I offered to meet with Linda and Sue Scher, and they were my starting point. So I was explaining to Sue, there's a seniors tab. So Silver Dollars has their section, separate tab, so that opens
Right.
up into their Silver Dollars. So Linda shares the Silver Dollars meeting information, events, bus trips. We put that on the calendar and
Right. Yeah.
on their homepage. The seniors, it was information that we gathered from the county but it's not regularly updated. All the calendars that are within each tab or a separate page feeds into the home calendar. So that's the intent of when this website was created. So people, me, whoever,
Yeah.
are supposed to put in the information, then it crosses over, but the police have their calendar. So if you post in your calendar, it crosses over to the community calendar.
Right.
So
And I
that's a
thought
nice
too-
feature.
I'm sorry, when we had the training, I thought that we can tell them what other places we want that information. So if that information is in various places, so that when you search seniors, the things that come up are the things that, right now you have to go to community.
You
and
do,
then
and even
seniors.
just putting in the search feature and putting in one word is very limited, and that's our website. So we'll have to kind of
Yeah,
brainstorm
just,
and see.
just make it a little bit more user-friendly.
But I did
So we can
offer-
actually tell people, this is how you get to where you need to go.
Right. Yeah, and then I said if they have pictures they want to show, like, we can add as much or as little, and
Yeah.
I can definitely help out with that.
Perfect. That's it.
Is it my turn or is it Jay?
Whatever you prefer.
Yeah, it's up to you.
Fine, pick me. Just in what I've been doing when I haven't been sitting here, as you may have noticed, there's some confusion about how to make the procurement system work properly. Part of which is because currently our procurement guidelines basically say, follow the state rules, here's what they are. And it's one page long. So working with Carrie and Ken and Howard, and if I forgot anybody, I apologize. We're starting to look at a more prescriptive policy, so that people will know what they're supposed to do, how many bids you're supposed to get, for what kind of projects, what the rules are, all of that stuff. This is a document that Howard circulated last year, I think, so, and certainly, once we sort of get all of the page references and all that sort of housekeeping sorted out, we'll circulate it to the board to start to review and comment on it, but we're starting that process. Again. I've been working with Rob and Sean. They've been doing the bulk of the work, but we have a project that's about ready to bid, which is to make necessary repairs to the floor of the highway garage. Just so you know, it'll be coming for again, board review and go out to bid on that shortly. And Howard too, sorry. And the last thing, last but not least, as everybody probably knows, there was some police excitement last week. Bad guys, speeding cars. I don't know if there was actually a gunfight or not, but there might have been 3 bad guys arrested. On top of all of that, while our police force was working on that, they also managed to rescue a person who got their car in the river. That was a completely unrelated incident. So more kudos to our police force.
Yep, definitely.
And that's what I got.
Thank you.
Okay, my turn. I have one slide. So as you know, Michelle and I have been working with some plans for revitalizing the downtown. So I just wanted to go over some logistics because I've gotten some feedback and I just want everyone to sort of understand the weeds, how we're going through the weeds, because there are weeds in everything. So, hold on. So basically, the Burgess study had many, many ideas. And each of those ideas brought you back to different agencies that had the decision-making ability. So I just want to just sort of segment and define who does what. So if you take a look at the New York State DOT, the New York State DOT is in charge of the school safety zone, which we've made an application for, and we're supposedly getting an answer as soon as this week. They are in charge of crosswalks. So if we were to want to add the crosswalk that is in the Burgess study, but not in the pedestrian plan, but in the Burgess study, we would have to get permission from the New York State DOT, which would involve engineering drawings. It would involve an initial meeting with them to just make sure that it was worth going forward. And then we would have to do traffic studies. So that is all, we can influence, but we cannot control. That's basically the whole point here. The next thing is traffic lights. So if we wanted to add a traffic light within the village, that again would have to be initiated. We could initiate it by a conversation, but we would have to get engineering drawings, and then we would have to also go in front of them, and they would then do traffic studies, and then they would decide whether or not that was something they wanted to do. But I can't read, the road diet. So the road diet, they're not really interested in pursuing that with us in terms of funding, but they did recommend that certain areas where we could try to find federal funding, or we could do it ourselves. And that would involve, again, us having to do a engineering drawings, quite extensive traffic studies on how you would do different things, but we could essentially do it ourselves if we wanted to fund it. Route 17 sidewalks. The issue there, and I've really tried to push this, can we redo the sidewalks on 17? The issue is on the, and I don't know the east from the west, to be honest, on the eastern side, that fits with the guidelines of the ADA guidelines. So we could redo those sidewalks if we wanted to.
The eastern side is the train station side.
Okay, thank you. So the eastern side we could do. But only up to a certain point. Then only where the sidewalks exist. After the sidewalks don't exist, which is after you go across and you go towards the Steve's,
Right.
that's all New York DOT. That's their right of way. We cannot do that. We cannot go there without their permission. It's private property and their property, and we cannot interfere on that. We can request, but it is private property. So that would be a very difficult task to do on that side. However, we could do the other parts because they do fit within the spec. On the western side, we can patch, but we cannot redo them. We would have to get a permit and we would not qualify, basically, because we don't have the 5x5 platforms available for the, Disabilities Act. So it wouldn't meet the requirements. We'd have to do a road diet, taking over part of Route 17, or we'd have to purchase private property, which is on the Lorde parking lot area, or also the idea is to switch in the library where the bushes are, make that the sidewalk and the sidewalk like that. We might be able to do that, but the idea of connecting between the village and the Historical Society has the same problem as on the other side. The DOT owns the right-of-way and the shore property is private property. I asked if we could go in and cut back some of the shrubs, and the answer is no. So we have to sort of leave it by Who told us that? Sean?
I hope this hasn't become a big discussion, so this is Deidre's report, so.
Yeah. So that's the DOT side. On the MTA side, which is their plan for the East Village, that light and crosswalk is in their plan, and that they have to coordinate that with the DOT also. So that would be the same kind of criteria that I went over with on the other side. We're trying to find out where that stands, but basically, right now, it's just a plan. So, in terms of Tuxedo property, what we can do is we can do the walkways, we can do lighting, but only on property that is owned by the town. Otherwise, we have to get permission from private property or the DOT. So that's basically an overview of how we would have to go about getting a lot of these things done, should we want to do it or not, but just getting into the weeds of how things move forward. That's it.
Thank you. All right, should we have the Airbnb?
Vouchers. Minutes. Page 21. Motion, I'll make a motion, ask for a second to accept the minutes of the regular bi-monthly town board meeting held on May 22nd, 2023. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Michelle Lindsay. Open to town board, any addition, edits, comments from town
So
board
I
members?
did have a comment. I thought at the last meeting, we had a discussion about process and about how we were going to move forward with new ideas and how we were going to structure that in the agenda. I didn't see that in the minutes, but I thought maybe we could decide on what we decided on.
I would just add, minutes aren't a verbatim transcription. They really are just meant to capture actions that were taken by a board. Marissa, I know you've gone to many trainings about what minutes should include of a town board meeting. Am I basically capturing that?
You are, it's hard. I know you had a lengthy discussion about.
Yeah, I just wanted to make, my issue is, I thought it was an important discussion, and I'd like to have it added to the minutes.
Do you have a recommended synopsis of what you'd like to see in the minutes? Because we do record the meetings and those are available to
Right,
anybody who wants
so
to
I'll
peruse.
do the recording, and I'll send something around and make sure everybody agrees.
Or, I mean, on YouTube, there's a way to, we have to save them, actually. Yes, that captures it. It's transcripts.
Yeah.
So if you want, that can be incorporated into the minutes, transcribed.
I would
your
expect those
conversation.
kind of details to be as an addendum, not to be.
I don't know if
'Cause
Howard.
a minutes need to be a succinct one-page, two-page, or at the most. But so Councilperson Murphy's point, there could be direction to how you see the rest of the meeting. And certainly if there's a succinct synopsis that you would want to see in there, you could certainly put it in there.
Well, I'll write it and I'll send it around.
Sounds good.
Okay, I think that would be helpful, because I'm not sure where we ended up, what we decided on, as far as process. So that would be.
But
helpful
we
to
did
see.
spend an hour on it, so.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
So then, do you want to, we should then table this until we have that synopsis to review? We can, or do
We
you
can
want?
approve what's there and certainly.
Yeah, with an addendum, it's fine.
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
Okay, make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted, and there's always the option to add more information, and the town board can approve that when those are submitted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Vouchers. Carrie has submitted a list of vouchers exceeding $5,000, a lot of the typical offenders. Court fines, $21,160 to state controller. $61,000 installment number 3 or 4 for our professional liability and auto insurance, $61,781. Health insurance, $42,120 for the police health insurance for July. Not a cheap entity. Insurance again, workers' comp, $17,213, and the June payment for paramedic services, $63,196, monthly payment. Garbage collection, $31,507, and this is available. I'm not gonna read them all, those are the major ones. I'll make a motion, ask for a second, that the following vouchers, having been audited by the town board, are hereby approved for payment. Claim number 201-292-1648 through 201-292-1765. I'll make a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Maria May. Open for town board discussion. All in favor of approving? Aye. Thank you. That's the vouchers. Public comments. I will remind people that we want to move to our discussion of the short-term rentals. We have public comments. Any public comments? Having not heard any, we'll move on to the discussion of the short-term rentals. Deputy Supervisor Reichgott, I think you'll be leading us in at least this best.
I'll start.
Start us.
So, again, this is an item that we looked at, I want to say last year, and then, I don't know, we saw a squirrel or something and got distracted. No, we moved on to other things. But this has come up again because, believe it or not, there are some people running Airbnb-type establishments in the town of Tuxedo, which is probably not surprising. Technically, Airbnb is a brand. There's Airbnb, there's Vrbo, there are probably others. The issue is short-term rentals of private residential establishments. Whether that's somebody who has a guest room that they rent out every weekend to different people, or someone has a whole house that they rent out. We're not talking about hotels, we're not talking about bed and breakfast, we're not talking about someone who has a long-term boarder, and we're not really talking about a sort of more traditional, I own a house in town and I rent it to somebody who lives there for 3 months, 6 months, 10 years, whatever. So Airbnb is again, that's a trade name. That's like saying Kleenex, right? We're talking about facial tissue. That is not a permitted use in the zoning. But there's no other regulation except that it's not listed as a permitted use and therefore it's not permitted. That's the way the zoning works.
So, question?
Yes, sir.
So because there's no zoning or there's no approval for it, it basically can't happen.
Correct. The way zoning works is only uses that are specifically approved are allowed.
Okay, so the Airbnbs or the short-term rentals that are currently operating in the town of Tuxedo are technically illegal?
Are technically.
Okay.
Now, it's not a very strong case. And Howard, when I say something wrong, you'll let me know.
Well, I could,
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to, I can only say so much,
Understood.
you know.
Well,
but-
anyway,
How about in the setup that Jay's setting? Did you want to opine in any way?
No, what he said so far is 100% accurate. And the only thing I would add is that the issue is not as clear because short-term rentals are rentals for residential purposes. And therefore, the argument could be made to the ZBA if somebody were issued a notice of violation, that what they're doing is really making it available for residential use, albeit on a short-term, for a short-term period. The residential use isn't defined by a length of time. So it is possible that somebody could make a case to the ZBA that their Airbnb is just making a residential use available on a limited time for people from time to time. And it's possible that the ZBA would find that, yeah, that is a residential use. And therefore, it would be an unregulated residential use. There are things associated with short-term rentals that are appropriately subject or should be regulated. And if you let it go to the ZBA or to the wind, you could end up with a situation where you have them, but they're not being regulated. So my recommendation,
That's where we are.
Right.
yeah, my recommendation in the past has been there should be regulation. And you should decide, what those regulations should look like. I had sent around a suggestion for your consideration, which tries to address all of the public-facing issues and planning issues that might be presented by such uses. Because at the end of the day, that's what you want to protect against. You want to make sure that whatever use you have, whether it's commercial, residential, any other type, that you've accounted for the logical planning issues that it might present in the community.
So Howard, so for example, let's say that if we're regulating it, somebody can say, I have an Airbnb, you have to let us know that they have it and be registered in some
Yeah,
ways.
Yeah, there would be
And then
issues.
have a set of rules that we have.
That's what this is.
Yeah, there would be permits.
Right.
There would be renewable permits that would be issued.
And if a person an owner isn't living up to these rules, then they can have their license removed, and then they are illegally in
Correct.
that use.
Correct.
Correct. And so this document, which I guess circulated I'm gonna say last week.
Yeah,
but just so that people, it's okay, it's not, we're not voting on it today.
Right.
This is what Howard was mentioning. So this is sort of model law based, I'm assuming, on other municipalities.
Yeah.
So what I really wanted to, I'll stop talking in a minute, I promise. What I wanted to do tonight was sort of see which way people's heads were moving as to whether we want to enact something like this. Deirdre's already started to read it and has sent some very good comments. This is the draft that has not been edited at all yet. So is this something that we want to do? The other alternate, which I'm not recommending, but I'm bringing up for completeness, is to do what the Village of Tuxedo Park has done and say, there will be no short-term rentals. The shortest length of time you can rent a property is 6 months, 9 months, a month. I don't know if somebody could challenge that.
Well, somebody is
But-
challenging now because there is an Airbnb.
There is
in
one
Tuxedo
on,
Park.
yes,
Where, in the
Like-
park?
yes.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not suggesting we follow that model. First of all, I don't think it's a good idea. I think that there are a lot of people who use Airbnb. And there are a lot of people who, from both sides, they use it as a place to stay, or they use it because they like being a host, whether for the money or the new and interesting people. I think people should be able to do it if they want to. At the same time, it should not become a nuisance to the neighbors. And before I get a lot of hate mail, I'm not saying that anybody in town is necessarily doing something bad, but I will say that there have been complaints to the building department. So it's not working the way it is. So I guess my question is this, and then I'll let people talk, is this something we want to do? And in which case, what I'll say is I would like to work with Howard and maybe Bonnie to look at some of the planning questions and get more of your comments so that we can put a draft together so we can have a real draft law to review and then go through the whole process it takes to do that.
Well, I think what we're trying to do here tonight is really just start a discussion, but really set a pathway forward. This is a major change to a complicated situation. I mean, just what Howard has provided us with is approaching 10 pages, very detailed in categories. And first thing I would suggest is we share this document with the public so they also are giving us feedback along the way prior to our meeting as well. At least that they have access to the document that we have in our hands. That would be my suggestion.
I think that's a great idea, but I would rather us take
Edit
the
it a
first
little.
pass at what the
Yeah.
law is gonna be.
It's really excessive, a lot of the stuff in here.
Okay,
Possibly, but I think that, I agree that we should present this to the public. We're gonna have a public hearing on it, and there should be time for them to digest it and comment. But I'm not sure I would throw this
Yeah.
raw document.
This is a lot. You didn't get to go through it at all.
I mean, there's some
Yeah,
things.
you don't,
is
you don't
this
want to,
actually-
you don't want to make public a document that you don't like.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't like this.
Is this actually code in some other town, or is it just, where did this come from?
Well, it was a code in another community that I was asked to comment on and suggest changes to. And the changes I suggested are incorporated into that document that you have.
Okay.
So I'd really like to
But
get,
just so you know, that community is a village. It's not a town. So it's a denser populated area than you're typically looking at in the town.
so really what I'm hoping, Howard and my colleagues here, is that before we leave this meeting tonight, we at least have a sense of how we're gonna proceed. Because this certainly isn't an action you wanna just respond to off the top of your head with questions that are just coming about literally as they pop in your head, you know?
I think where Jay's going is the first question you need to agree upon is, number one, do you want to regulate these? And if the answer to that is yes, okay, then let's work on the regulations.
Well, I
But
think as you established, Howard, in kind of your first opening statement here about this topic was, we have situations right now that'll end up in front of the ZBA as opposed to really a code enforcement officer or real definitions, that this problem is much more complex because of the proliferation of these kind of online services that our current town code can possibly deal with. So I think we're probably all in agreement, and residents who are concerned about this, that our current code does not cover this. So I think the answer is yes, we need something that's better defined than what we have. That's I think, absolute. So then how do we start? Because, I perused some of this. It goes even beyond just renting of a room or renting of a house. Are you renting your swimming pool? Are you renting your garage? Are you renting, do you have access to a lake? Are you renting that, So all of these kind of considerations. And now you've just raised the issue that this was written for a village and not for a town. I'm not sure I understand totally those implications, but I
Well,
think the answer is yes, we obviously need to pursue this, but with a pathway that's organized and has charges for all of the board members to come prepared so that we have a fruitful discussion that has a focus. That's my 2 cents on that, about process.
Well, I would suggest that we schedule the next time we want to talk about this. And then, between now and then, everybody read through it, you know, a couple times with a pencil and mark up the spots where you see issues. Because, you know, similar to what we did with zoning or the special permit or anything else, I mean, and then we can very quickly go through and all the stuff that we don't disagree with, good, we're done.
Right.
And then we can look at the pieces where people have issues.
Right.
And work through them and see if we can come up with a, you know, come up with a consensus or whatever the plurality here. And
A
go from there.
workable program for the town.
Right. So then the question is, I mean, we're kind of full for next meeting. I mean, this is certainly somewhat pressing, but you want to schedule some time for a first pass on the 26th, or do you want to let it run into July?
We might have ideas sent to you.
Yeah,
wanna
absolutely.
collect, and then maybe.
Send me stuff.
You know, have a couple iterations before we put it out there, so maybe the first meeting in July. That's just my thought. Gives us time to submit concerns and go
Yeah.
back and forth and come
Yes,
up
they'll-
with something that
um,
we could present to the public.
Yeah, right, well, of course. Sure, so then, you know, the next couple of weeks, if you guys can send me, you know, chapter and verse and things that you think need to be adjusted, expanded, thrown away, we can go from there.
And we need a public hearing.
Well, we
so-
will need a public
We
hearing,
will.
but I'm
Yeah,
not
this
sure
is
we're
gonna
ready
be-
to do that yet, so
Yeah,
I'd
if you-
say. Sorry, go ahead, Howard.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm sorry, but yes, this will be adopted as a local law. When you're ready to do so. And that requires a public hearing.
So then we would shoot for the second meeting, maybe in July as the public
If
hearing date.
we're ready to do that, that'd be great.
Yep.
So I guess what we're committing to between now and the 26th, which is 14 days, comment from all board members, at least getting it started. Doesn't have to be every thought you have on the topic, but whatever you can get and share amongst our colleagues.
Yes. And if
Would
you
we
get-
have a common document that we could post our
So long
comments
as it's
to?
not Google Docs.
Okay, what would be?
I don't know, but if you have more than one email address, Google Docs will just make your life a living nightmare. Trust me.
Well, could we at least get it in maybe an edit form? I mean, a form we can
I can
edit
send it,
and highlight?
I can send it to you in Word.
That would be.
Yeah,
perfect.
okay.
Yeah, that's
You-
good.
let's-
Thank you.
Let's.
Then we
send
can
it in
highlight
Word
what
and you
where
can-
we have problems.
Yes,
Okay.
and then if you guys can get me that before the 26th, and I don't mean, you know,
The night
I mean
before.
before the 26th, I will try to compile a, you know, a single version that has all of the comments on it. Or at least flag them. And I will sort of, I give you a report of where we stand at the 26th with the understanding that we're not going to be doing very much other than that report.
Yeah, this is an important topic and we need to get it right. And we want to expedite, but not at the expense of getting it right. So
Right, all deliberate speed, as they say.
all deliberate speed, I like that phrase.
I didn't make it up. The other thing I will say is I would like input from the community as part of this process. I don't remember what my email address is, but you can find me on the town board page or send it to Marissa and she will make sure that we get it and we can start to incorporate comments. Yes, ma'am.
No, that was my major point, like, you should really be talking.
Can you just
people-
introduce yourself?
Sorry, I'm Daria Bukursky. I have dealt with an Airbnb.
Wait, sorry, you gotta use the microphone.
Sorry.
It won't sound like you're amplified. It's for the people. at home.
It's for the people here.
Oh, okay,
Oh.
sorry.
No worries.
Daria Bukursky, I live in Clinton Woods and have been dealing for the last year and a half with an Airbnb situation that has been intolerable. Not just for me, but for many other residents who maybe couldn't join tonight for whatever reason. But it has been a nightmare. And I would implore the board to get feedback from those who've actually had to deal with this. What I realize, you want the regulations to make sense. But unless you've lived through a situation like some of us have for the last year and a half, you have no idea what regulations you might think to put in there if you haven't gone through the situation that we have. And so that would be my only, ask of the board to please, and I'm willing to talk to anybody, spend as much time with any of you, all of you, in person, over a phone conversation, however is more convenient for, each of you, just so that you fully understand some of the issues that we've had to deal with. And, as you consider what regulations to put in, that might be helpful as a starting point and some, commentary.
Can you email us? Can you email Jay Rajgat? If you go on the town board, you can,
Well,
on the,
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I sent an email to the town clerk over a year ago, and I believe Marissa did forward it to all of you, but I'm happy to re-forward that and also add some additional information that we've had to deal with in more recent times.
Absolutely.
yes.
The only reason we ask for it in email, first of all, there's a record.
Of course.
And that way I don't have to remember everything and put it in an email.
No,
and send it to
I don't mind doing that, and I don't want to reiterate it here. I'm happy to put it down on paper because it's late and, we all want to go home. But I thank the board for taking this seriously because it really is. And I think, this is cropping up in a lot of communities. Other towns have had to deal with it and put in place regulations. I personally would like to outlaw the practice, but I don't know how realistic that is. And if there are legal challenges, we might have, we might be at the same point we are today anyway. So,
Now, figuring out something that's enforceable
Right.
is key. Defensible in a court of law
Right.
is key. And that's all I meant by making sure we're trying to get this right.
Understood.
Because I live in Laurel Ridge. My personal feeling is I spent over $800,000 on my home. I don't want every day the potential of somebody else peering over my fence and saying, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" That's not. So, although I haven't lived it personally, I've certainly had the nightmares of thinking about it.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to share some of the.
No, I'll be happy to come to your home even, and when there's an egregious, just whenever there's somebody there.
Well, I
just to
think the
even
activity
witness.
has stopped for now.
But I think everyone on this dais is committed to trying to get this right, and without even having to poll my colleagues. We've been dealing with a lot of stuff, but it's time to try to take a deep dive into getting this right. And I'm sure we're committed to it. And, so we'll take our first stabs at getting it. And then, as Jay pointed out, share something that has all of our fingerprints on it. So at least, we've started the process with obviously our council guiding the way. And, trying to figure it out. Again, how do you come up with something that's enforceable and that is something we can live with? And
Well, that's the trick, because everybody, you can always circumvent the law if you're so motivated to do
Right.
so. And that's the hitch into all of this. No law and no regulation is perfect. But I can only tell you that the situation that many residents in Clinton Woods have dealt with has been intolerable.
Right.
So
Yeah.
thank you to the board for taking this seriously.
No, I'm sure we're committed to really putting some effort into this, so,
We have,
thank you.
we have somebody on the board that, with our hands raised.
Oh, Sue Cher has her hand raised, Sue? And then Jerry after that.
Yes, I do have my hand raised, and I too am a resident of Clinton Woods. And I am pleased that the board is taking this up, but I have a what about in the meantime question? Because your process is going to take quite a while, but we have at least one house that continues to have people there and create problems. And what recourse do the residents of the area have when people are throwing garbage all over the place and people are making, having parties until 2 o'clock in the morning and disturbing neighbors? And
Are they violating, are typically these types of situations, the way they present themselves is with noise issues and trash issues and maybe parking issues? I mean, is that the kind of problems that you're experiencing? Because the town has a noise law and we do have regulations about littering. And so it may be just an enforcement issue and getting the police or the building, the code enforcement officer out when these things are happening, so as to try to address them in the meantime.
I think Darla and Mary can probably explain that certainly better than I, because I really have just been hearing it from my neighbors and not experiencing it myself. But they,
I'd like to just pose that, part of the problem is there's a temporary tenant, let's call it, in the space. They're leaving on Monday morning, you're citing them as
No,
opposed
no.
to the property owner.
No, you would cite the property owner. You would cite the property owner.
I mean, the noise complaint, you cite the property owner
You
as
cite them
well.
both. You cite them both. You don't know the relationship. You cite them both.
And obviously, the challenge is with the code enforcement officer, it's basically Monday through Friday. Let's say 8 to 4. So I'm just pointing out some of the obvious challenges.
But there are challenges, but the short-term answer is,
Police.
the police.
Right. The
Police.
answer
And
can,
we've done that.
right.
We've done that.
And what happened?
But depending upon the hour, do I need to?
Yes.
Depending upon the hour, we can't get the local police.
Is it turned on green?
Oh, sorry. Now it is. Depending upon the time of night or early morning, we can't get the local police. By the time the state police or whoever comes, the noise might have died down, the lights might have been turned off, and they don't even know which house to go to, even though we know the house number and give it to them.
Right.
So, there is that issue of timing.
Understood. And as you heard the supervisor say, we're working on finalizing the built out of the police officers so that we can have 24/7
Full-time
coverage.
police.
We have a line part of the time. We're working to have it full time.
What happened, Officer Shiloh really went above and beyond. Working with me, et cetera, when I found that garbage there was a good 6 to 8 30-gallon, white kitchen garbage bags just chucked down the ravine. That officer not only dragged every single, and I didn't ask him to do that. I just wanted to report it and have it known. He dragged every single bag out of the ravine up to the little turnaround that's in Clinton Woods right there. And he actually went through the garbage to find evidence as to where it came from. That's how we knew, and that was the only way we knew it was the Airbnb. And again, he couldn't do anything. He could only close the case. He couldn't make any charges, no arrests, no fines, no nothing, because he was told all sorts of stories. Everybody that approached the owner was told like a different story. So, and the owner had said they were friends in Maryland and he couldn't be traced, so nothing could happen with that. But it's being addressed
We're
now.
doing what we can.
Yeah, if we stick our heads in the sand, no, nothing's gonna happen. But if we have this, then at least we have recourse.
Well, I know we're committed to serious exploration here. And it's gonna start with the next meeting. We'll be working in between now and the next 2 weeks. We'll be reading it over. It will definitely be on our agenda, at least to make sure that the conversation starts. Might have to set some kind of, okay, we have 20 minutes for this discussion or whatever, to see how busy the agenda is. But this will be a continuing topic for discussion until we have a local law that we all feel adds some teeth to this. Because, yeah, the reason why we all moved to Tuxedo is for peace and quiet and enjoying nature, as that's why we live here. And we can't allow this to disturb that at the benefit of a very few people that, and it would also be consideration of where is this permitted in certain zones? Because we do have that already. Where is a rental, hotels and those kind of things available? So we'll, without getting into all the details, obviously, because now I'm talking off the top of my head, which is really not the best way to pursue this. It has to be thoughtful consideration based on work that we're doing behind the scenes.
Yep. Jerry?
Jerry, did you want to say? Thank you. Okay, so,
What did you do with the real Jerry?
all right, so that was the last topic on our agenda. Thank you all for coming out.
We gotta actually officially adjourn.
Sorry?
We gotta actually adjourn.
Oh, yeah, I was going to move.
Oh, okay.
But wanted to thank you for coming out again. And Mary, I will send you my my report. So you have those notes, and
Thank you, Ken.
other town board members could do that as well. So thank you. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting tonight at 9:30 exactly. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Please shut your microphones off.